Hi everyone, you're listening to the CIP podcast, the Study Abroadcast, episode 2. I'm your host Jacqueline, the International Education Intern at the Center for International Programs at the University of Guelph. In this show, we explore the world of study abroad, offering advice, insights, and travel stories, bridging perspectives and cultures along the way. On this episode, we'll be speaking with two University of Guelph exchange students about their study abroad experience and some of the challenges they faced on their journey. So let's get right into it. Today on our show, we are pleased to welcome Daniel and Jess. To get started, Daniel, can you tell our listeners a little about yourself and your exchange experience?
Hi, my name is Daniel Ganitsky. I was on an exchange in Vienna last year at the University of Boku. That stands for University of Natural Sciences, just outside of Vienna.
Thanks, Daniel. And we'll pass it over to Jess. Same question. Tell us a little about yourself and your time abroad.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jessica Crosby, and I'm currently a fourth-year psychology student. I went abroad this past winter to the University of Southampton in England.
All right, that's great. So now we're going to get into some questions that are going to dive into your experience so that we can learn more. So Daniel, the first question is, how did you first hear about study abroad, and what were some of the general things you did to get started?
So I originally heard about study abroad from one of my friends who did it a year before, and obviously the experience was great, so I got myself involved, and through info sessions and fairs, I quickly learned more and more, and in my second year, I really got involved, and in my third year, I was gone.
And how about you, Jess?
I always knew that I wanted to do study abroad, and when I was in first year, someone in my residence had gotten accepted to go to Singapore in second year. And I just thought it was the coolest thing being able to do a semester overseas. And I didn't really know how to get started right away, but I do remember seeing a lot of ads around the UC and on Facebook on like having to do an information session. So once I learned about that, I did an info session and then got started.
Yeah, that's a good point. So anybody who is interested in getting started, the info session is your first step. So you can just check out our website or email cip@uofguelph.ca to get signed up for our info session and get started on your journey. So if that's how you first heard about study abroad, what was it that drew you to the host university and program that you participated in, Daniel?
So I knew that I wanted to go to a German-speaking country, and that helped me narrow down to a few different countries. And then I started looking at the schools, and you quickly realize that some schools don't offer the courses that you're looking for. And once you know that, you really have maybe 3 or 4 schools that you know are perfect, and you just decide what works best for you. And I decided that Vienna was probably the best city for me. It's a big city. It's right in the heart of Europe. That's why I went to Boku. Regarding the program, it's really interesting to take new style courses in Europe. And in my university, we had a lot of field courses, which was very interesting. And that's something that definitely drew me to Boku.
Great. And how about you, Jess?
I always knew that I wanted to go to the UK. So when I was looking through schools, I already had my search narrowed down to be like UK schools. The school that I went to was University of Southampton, and I really liked the location of it. It was just a really pretty town. It was on the water. It was in the south and kind of close to London. So it was nice knowing that London is kind of a hub for a lot of train stations and plane stations for other places that I would want to travel, which was very appealing for me. And in terms of the program, I'm kind of the same with Daniel. There's a lot of cool courses for like psychology. I feel like there's a lot of courses that are the same across kind of worldwide, but this school specifically had some really interesting courses that I've never seen before. So that kind of drew me specifically to that school.
Yeah, one of the great things about study abroad is the new options you have in courses and the different variety that's available. So I know studying abroad can be a big decision that you're going to make. So was there a moment when you moved from being on the fence to being all in and committing to the experience? And what convinced you to participate?
During my decision to go abroad, you really kind of have to talk to people and see if it's right for you. And the CIP team is really good at helping you understand what it means to go abroad. And you talk to a lot of university staff before you go abroad. But really, what was the point for me was when I had my guidance counselor approve all my courses and say, yeah, like this could work, like you could go abroad and come back and not have to take an extra year or an extra semester. And I was like, okay, maybe then that's the right thing for me. And And then there's also a little fee that you have to pay for CIP. And once you pay that fee, you're not coming back from that.
So the fee Daniel's talking about is the $80 admin fee that CIP charges. So what happens is the process: you apply to study abroad, we'll accept you to one placement, and then you have 1 week to decide if you want to accept your offer or not accept it and not go on study abroad. So the fee is $80, and once you've accepted that, you're set to go, and we'll help you with the next steps of the process. So Jess, how about you? Was there a moment when you moved from being on the fence to all in, and what helped you make that decision?
I don't think there was a moment where I was on the fence about going to study abroad because I knew it was always something that I wanted to do. So if I were to get accepted, I already knew that I was going to be going. But I guess my on the fence moment was just due to courses. If the courses abroad didn't match with what I needed here, then I probably would have chosen not to go, just in case it would have meant me having to take an extra semester. There was a point where my parents got a little bit nervous and they were on the fence, but I didn't let that stop me. I don't care if they're nervous. I was still going to go anyways.
That's a great segue into our next question. Were there any other apprehensions that you had about traveling or concerns that your family or friends expressed before you went abroad, and what were they?
So there's obviously a concern like before you leave, and there's things that you leave behind in Guelph. Consider like what's going to happen to your housing, what's going to happen to your furniture. Those are things that I personally had worries about because obviously you don't want to pay two rents. But that's definitely manageable. You can easily sublet here in the city. And also you have to kind of maybe consider that you're going to be alone for 4 or 5 months, and that might be a new feeling. And having a language barrier is also a new challenge. But it's really good to know that there's a lot of support at the University of Guelph. Regarding the language barrier, all your friends are most likely going to speak English regardless. So those things they vanish quickly when you land and realize that things are a lot easier than they seem.
What about you, Jess?
I think the biggest concern that both me and my parents had was me getting around because my directional sense is really not the greatest. So I think everyone was nervous that I would get lost or stranded, which was a very big possibility. But I think when I went abroad, it helped me to become more organized with my traveling and kind of look around and make sure I knew my surroundings so that didn't happen. And I think another concern they had was just if an emergency were to happen, who's in the UK to help me? Like we don't know anyone. And thankfully that didn't happen either.
Yeah, those are all a lot of concerns that students have before they go abroad. But I think once students participate, once they get abroad, they realize that there's more supports available than they initially realized. And so it makes it manageable for a lot of people. So in terms of supports, what other supports did you receive regarding health and safety abroad from the CIP office?
So there are a few safety things you have to go over with the CIP office. You talk about insurance. Really, once you have your health insurance, you're kind of set that you don't have to worry. You can always message the CIP team even when you're abroad, and they should be able to direct you in the proper direction. But obviously, it's different wherever you go. So your host university is also able to accommodate your needs if you need any.
Yeah, and how about you, Jess?
So everything Daniel said was really good, and I agree with that. But something that I also really liked about the CIP team was their dedication to us using the mental health resources in Guelph. As a psychology student, I always advocate for good mental health, so that was really important to me. And our exchange abroad advisors always said that they would be there for us whenever we needed them, if we needed them while we were abroad. I was also abroad during COVID, like when the pandemic happened. And the fact that the CIP office gave us $1,000 to be able to get back home safely, it was good. It was nice.
Yeah, so those are both good points. We do keep in contact with our students, whether it's a regular semester or there's a pandemic happening. We try and make sure that everybody's up to date and we're aware of what's happening around the world and where everybody's studying. And then on top of those supports, we also do offer mandatory training and like orientation sessions before you go abroad that helps prepare students for any health and safety issues that you might experience while you're abroad. So we try and do some pre-departure training to help prevent you from getting into some situations while you're abroad. So if we shift this over more to an academic note, Were there any hurdles that you needed to overcome with regards to course selection, credit transfer, Daniel?
There are definitely hurdles. That was definitely the most frustrating thing of my exchange, was dealing with the credit systems here and there. It's a huge hassle, but you only have to do it once or twice. I had a lot of problems trying to understand the ECTS systems and how everything breaks down. And that's something that you have to find out when you actually, because every school is different and every region is going to have different credit systems, and it's different from school to school. So you really have to land and talk to your academic advisors there and talk to other students. But that was a challenge for me to get everything right and all the credits together and make sure that I was coming back with the right amount of credits that I originally intended to. That was a big challenge for me.
And Jess, what was your experience like transferring credits and taking courses?
I would have to agree with Daniel. It was definitely one of the biggest hurdles that I had to face throughout the whole process. I remember when I was even just picking my schools, I was starting to get discouraged because I would look through the courses that they had offered, and a lot of the courses that I wanted to take or needed to take were only offered the semester that I wasn't going to be there. So, like, I was thinking, oh no, like, am I not going to be able to go abroad because, my courses, they're not there? That ended up working out. And then in terms of the credit transfer process, so I was in a bit of a unique situation. I don't know if Daniel was in the same one. Because of the pandemic, a lot of my courses didn't have final exams. So when my transcript came through, it would say the course was partially completed, even though it was technically fully completed because there was no final exam. So that became a bit of an issue during the credit transfer process. But my academic advisor on both ends from England and here at Guelph were really good in communicating with each other and communicating with me, and then it all worked out.
Jess and Daniel kind of mentioned how they were looking up the courses that were offered at the different host universities. And so if you're looking for some of that information, we have our program search tool on our website, which allows you to filter your search based on the program you're studying. And a lot of students ask if they're restricted to the answers that show up when they search for their program. And the answer would be no. It just depends on your flexibility that you have in your degree. So if you have electives that you can use, you can take whatever kind of courses you like, restricted electives versus core credits. And so meeting with your program counselor might be the best way to figure out what courses you have to take or the flexibility that you have when you're looking at host universities. So we're going to switch this over a little bit, and we're going to talk about one of the biggest barriers to study abroad, and that usually revolves around funding and financing. So Daniel, how did you manage to budget and save up for this experience?
Oh, that's a great question. Depending on where you go, the cost of living is very different. Luckily, where I was in Vienna, the cost of living is almost the same. So the totality of my trip was about the same it cost me to stay in Guelph, plus the flights. What I did when I got there is I tried to find the cheapest housing or find housing that's generally affordable. And there's a lot of student specific homes that do that. And when I got there, I went grocery shopping and I traveled a little bit and I realized approximately how much everything's going to cost me. And then I created a plan to see how much I'm willing to spend on my exchange and how much everything's going to cost me. So I knew approximately what I had to play with. But actually, I was quite surprised. When I came back, I realized that it wasn't much more expensive. And I think that just traveling generally is more expensive than going on your abroad. Having a home base so close to your travel is very affordable. It opens up a lot more opportunity for the price that you would get just with catching a plane over your summer break.
And how about you, Jess? What did you do to budget and save up?
So, one of the biggest things I did for saving up money was just saving any money that I got from either birthdays or Christmas or working. The summer before I left was like the big summer where almost all the money that I got through working was kind of saved towards study abroad. The UK is more expensive living than Canada, so I did the same. I tried to find the cheapest residence option, which I did. And it's kind of an adjustment, but once you're there, you just kind of see what things are costing you, what groceries costing you, and kind of make adjustments to how much you want to spend on certain things. And when we started traveling around, we also made an effort to pick the cheapest travel options and stay in hostels where that was a lot cheaper than, staying in a hotel or something else.
When it comes to budgeting, a good point to remember too is that if you are on OSAP while you're at Guelph, you're still eligible for OSAP when you study abroad, and that's because you remain registered as a Guelph student. So that's really helpful to a lot of students. And there's also a number of travel scholarships and bursaries that are offered through Student Financial Services. So we really encourage students to have a look into that and do it early to make sure that you don't miss any of the deadlines for those scholarships. Were you able to connect with past exchange students or manage to network with other students going abroad before you left, Daniel?
Yeah, so I luckily went to a fairly popular destination, and there was three other Canadian students that were four other Canadian students that were traveling along with me. You kind of talk to them in the beginning a little bit, and maybe you'll probably take the same classes in the beginning and language courses, and then you try to maybe distance yourself because you want to make new friends. But it's still nice to have a small connection of people while you're traveling. I also had friends who did exchange beforehand, who were in Austria as well, that really helped me understand the systems and gave me a lot of good heads ups and places to go and things to do, because it's a fairly decent sized country and there's so much opportunity. You can't do everything, so it's good to have someone filter some things for you and help you understand better.
That's great. And how about you, Jess?
So I also had a friend. She doesn't go to University of Guelph, but I know that she went on exchange the year before to Ireland. I had reached out to her, kind of asking her advice on, how it worked and what she did. More so questions about just like traveling and like what kind of bags she brought, just so that I was more equipped when I started packing. But I also had three University of Guelph students who went abroad with me. And it was nice because we had met up before exchange. So we'd met up in November of first semester last year. And we kind of hit it off really quickly, all of us. So we ended up being able to get on the same flight going there. And it was nice having people that I knew kind of as a comfort, but it also, I don't think it held me back in any way because they were just as open and knew it was important to them to meet new friends also. So it was nice to be able to travel with them because they did become really close friends of mine, but we all also kind of went off and made other friends and new friends.
Yeah, so I think both Jess and Daniel kind of commented how they were able to connect with University of Guelph students who were going to the same host university as them before they left. And so CIP helps to make that happen by sending out a connection email where we let everybody know who's going to the same university in that academic year, so you can connect, share resources, coordinate travel if that's something that you're looking forward to. And then we also know that past study abroad participants can be a great resource of information. And so we have the Travelers Connection Night where we connect past students who have went to these countries, the students who are about to go out, and any incoming students that we have at Guelph who are from, like, let's say Austria, England, wherever, so that they can give you their perspective and their experience at these different countries. And you can get all of your questions answered then. So now we're going to go to our last question. Are there any other tips or advice you would give to those students who really want to go abroad but are currently on the fence? Daniel?
I definitely say go for it. It's such a unique experience and it's so much fun, and there's nothing that you can do during your exchange that will make you regret it. It's really at the greatest time of your academic career. And not only do you get to experience living in a new country and speaking a new language, you also get to learn new things that you don't necessarily learn here. And if you are looking to do postgraduate abroad, it's also a great start to applying to foreign schools as well. If you're on the fence and you haven't talked to anybody going on your exchange yet, you should. They'll definitely convince you.
Some great advice. And how about you, Jess?
Yeah, I would have to agree with that too. It's kind of a just do it moment. It really, for me, it ended up being one of the best experiences of my life. It was so exciting, so fun. You get to learn new cultures and not just learn new cultures, but you get to experience new cultures. And something that I always think about also is you never really know what your future holds and if you're going to get this opportunity again. Like after undergrad, you could get a full-time job right away and not really have the opportunity to take a few months out of your life to like go abroad and travel and study abroad. So if you have the opportunity, I would say to go and do it.
Yeah, I think you both provided some really great advice today, so thank you for coming and sharing your experience. And that's all for today's episode of the Study Abroadcast. If you do want to learn more about studying abroad, our website is uoguelph.ca/CIP, or you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Our Instagram handle is CIP_Guelph. Thanks for listening, and thanks to Jess and Daniel for sharing their advice, insights, and travel stories. Stay tuned for our next episode where we look to unpack the study abroad experience even further.